There's a new DeFi ecosystem and it's starting to feel a little bit like magic. That's right, the new Avalanche DeFi ecosystem is cross-chain and doing some absolutely crazy stuff. And these coins are gonna go absolutely nuts over the coming days and weeks as Avalanche creates a snowball of new liquidity, incentives, and excitement. Strap in, because just like I told you, AVAX was the ecosystem to watch, and almost every single coin that I mentioned over the last few days and weeks has gone ridiculously up in value. This is just the beginning, and I'm going to outline for you why this is so special. So come down the rabbit hole as we cast a spell over this new DeFi landscape. Again, all this cutesy talk is going to make sense in just a minute. If you guys are not subscribed to this channel, each and every day I show you how to make money and get ahead of trends in crypto, and no one's called it like we have. So if you like making crazy gains in crypto, make sure you're subscribed and smash that bell button so that you make sure you get every single update at the earliest possible moment. With that said, let's dive in. Now, I want to say before I jump in here, just like on my other altcoin videos, yes, I'm invested into this ecosystem long term. I've not sold a single Avalanche coin. However, I need to make this completely clear. This is the deep end of the swimming pool, and this is where the advanced behavior goes on. Meaning, you could make it or break it here, and you could easily see drawdowns of 80%, 90%, or even more. You could absolutely lose your shirt with these types of altcoins, so you need to understand this is super high risk, super high reward type stuff, and you need to be prepared for losing literally almost everything if you're going to play in this part of the swimming pool. You just got to know that. With that said, let's dive in. As I mentioned last week, Joe was one of my favorite coins in the entire ecosystem and still is. It's like the sushi swap of this ecosystem, and I'm pouring myself a hot steaming cup of Joe. I aped heavily into this, have not sold a token yet, and I don't plan to. I think there's much more upside here. Again, I also pointed out cryptically this project called Wonderland, or Time. That's going to be a heavy topic today on this video, as well as Apex. I talked about being a meme coin, so of course treat that as you should with a boulder of salt. They will pump and they will dump. I also talked about Yield Yak, and of course the king itself, Avalanche, which is the safest play in this whole ecosystem. Avalanche, or AVAX, is like the gas token of this whole blockchain. You can think of this like Solana to the Solana blockchain, the Sol token, or Ethereum or ETH to the Ethereum blockchain. These are the sort of base level assets that will be most safe, most likely to go up, and least likely to go crazy down. Though of course I do believe Avalanche is still in that emerging territory where it could easily see drawdowns of 80, 90+%. So this is all super high risk. But that said, we did cover Benki Avalanche, Yield Yak, Wonderland, and Joe all over the last few weeks. And so we've been trying to give you the keys here to really get ahead of these insane market trends. But there's actually something brewing here in this ecosystem that's even more special, even more interesting to me. And in order to understand this, we're going to have to go down the rabbit hole in an Alice in Wonderland style mystical journey here into Magic Land. It's all going to make sense in just a second, because we're going to be jumping into an ecosystem here, super low cap and super interesting, called Abracadabra.money. Now, just to be clear, none of my videos ever are sponsored or paid for. That is not how this channel works. If ever I do have any person having any financial incentive on this show, I make it explicitly clear, but there is zero of that in this video or my previous Avalanche videos or any of them. I tell you where I put my money. I put my money where my mouth is, and I try to get ahead of the biggest trends like NFTs, like DeFi, and now the AVAX ecosystem. Anyway, let's dive in here. Abracadabra Money is a spell book that allows users to produce magic internet money. You, the spellcaster, can provide collateral and in the form of various interest-bearing crypto assets. In this case, they provide several assets, including XSushi, or YV, USDC, USDT, or YFI, and we'll go into all of these and what this means. And with this, you can borrow MIM, or Magic Internet Money. And this is a stablecoin that you can use to swap with any other traditional stablecoin. So Abracadabra Money, magical as it sounds, essentially allows you to take yield-bearing assets. In this case, XSushi is an asset I can use by staking sushi. So I buy my sushi swap, and if I want actual protocol fees from the sushi network, I can stake that sushi for what's called XSushi, and the XSushi token actually gives a yield. Now, I can take this XSushi token and actually deposit it into Abracadabra Money, and I can mint the MIM token, which is a stablecoin backed by yield-producing assets. This will become very interesting as we show you in just a second when we talk about certain thought leaders in the industry and how they believe stablecoins should be formed going forward, given that essentially fiat currency is not so stable, with hyperinflation seeming to be rearing its ugly head. Now, what's actually interesting about Magic Internet Money, or MIM, is that it is cross-chain and it's actually pooled with 3 of the other biggest stablecoins on Curve. So Curve is a stablecoin trading platform that fundamentally allows you to really easily get between stablecoins. Now, this might not sound like that big of an issue, but when you see that a lot of coins on Uniswap have like big slippage of a few percent or more for trades of $10,000, $20,000, well, you realize that when people are moving global commerce around and they need to move millions of dollars, say between USDC and USDT, they're both stable coins. So it should really be easy for you to make a one-to-one swap no matter how much money you're moving around, even $1 million or more. So having high liquidity pools that are designed to help you get from one stable coin to another is actually a core primitive, big necessity for DeFi. If you really want crypto to take over as a financial layer of the internet, it must be super easy to get between currencies of the same value. That's when Curve comes in. And so what you see here is that this MIM3 pool, and by the way, the naming conventions here in DeFi are way too confusing. That needs to be changed, but that's a different topic. The point is this MIM3 pool allows you to easily get between MIM, DAI, USDC, and USDT, and you can easily trade between them. So it's a stable coin where you can easily get between other stable coins. Now, by staking and lending liquidity, or LP tokens, you can actually earn a coin called Spell. Spell is the governance token here of this magical ecosystem. And Spell is one of the things that is really exciting to get your hands on and what people are farming. Now, what we did see is that Alameda, backed by Sam Bankman-Fried here, this is their big financial entity that goes in, invests in things, and does farming. Essentially, this invested in Solana. This is behind FTX. Alameda is kind of like the big, Death Star of operations here for the Sam Bankman-Fried empire. Alameda is now touching Abracadabra with what this one user is calling farm and dump cash, meaning that they're just putting a bunch of money into a pool, farming the token, and selling it. Now, this was accused of what they were doing with sushi early days. So it's really important to actually see a lot of these things take place so you can start recognizing patterns. Now, Spell very well might be an early stage DeFi protocol that takes huge market share, and that's why it's worth paying attention to here. So he says, sell me as much Spell as you want and F off. Now, of course, this is a play on when Sam tweeted at someone, sell me as much Solana as you want at $3 right now and F off, because that was right before the parabolic rise, and it goes down as one of the most famous tweets in all of history. Now, of course, he says, look what you did with Convex, and I countered you there too, right at $2. So he's saying, look, they were doing this at Convex, farming and dumping. They did this to sushi, and now they're doing it to Abracadabra Spell. Trust me, this is a great group of tokens to be associated with, and we're going to soon dive in and see why this is actually interesting from a technical level. Now, remember when I told you that cross-chain bridges were one of the most important things to focus on, and I specifically shouted out AnySwap? Well, guess what? AnySwap is back in the frame again, as you can actually bridge MIM tokens across chains via AnySwap network right on the actual interface here. So you don't even need to go to another chain or another interface. You can literally bridge from Fantom to Avalanche or from Ethereum layer 2 Arbitrum to either of these chains without ever leaving the actual interface there. And apparently it happens in just a few minutes. It's super quick. So the bridge is fantastic, and that allows for MIM to be cross-chain and really hop around protocols very easily. And now to illustrate the power and the speed that this particular industry, or this particular ecosystem rather, is upgrading itself, we can look for a tweet here by Bridged Danielle, who is actually the leader here he's the developer behind this whole magical ecosystem. And you see this hat thing. That's like the sign that people are using on crypto Twitter to indicate that they're playing ball in this ecosystem. So Sisyphus was saying, where does the $1.6 billion in TVL in Nyan go after the farm ends in 2 hours? And of course, the Nyan farm was the one that was taking root on Arbitrum. Now, all of this liquidity was over there, but the farm was about to end. So where does all that liquidity go? Where does all that TVL go? Essentially, Sisyphus said all the answers here are wrong. The right answer is it probably goes back through the bridge unless Abracadabra can get something incentivized in the next 6 hours or so, I bet. Pretty much all the money that had flown into Arbitrum over the last few weeks, of which there were billions, a lot of that was going to leave unless there was a new incentive program to keep that sort of promiscuous liquidity on the chain. And within just a few minutes here, we saw that Bridge Daniel says, how about the next 30 minutes? And that is the speed of action required to partake in what's a crazy and rapid moving DeFi ecosystem. So we quickly saw action here by the Abracadabra community as they went to go capture this Nyan liquidity and bring it over to the AVAX or the Abracadabra ecosystem. So they said really quickly, deposit ETH and be able to withdraw your MIM within 24 hours. And they were offering a $1 million airdrop. And this happened within minutes of realizing that the Nyan farm was going to run out of gas. And then another user said, I deposited ETH on abracadabra.money on Arbitrum and became eligible for a $1 million airdrop, borrow the decentralized stablecoin MIM and send those MIM from Arbitrum to Fantom in just 5 minutes via AnySwap network and MIM spell, the magic of spell. And that's what he's saying. This is how everything should look like, ultimate freedom with MIM Airlines. But of course, this connects with more than just Fantom and Arbitrum. It also connects to Avalanche. So now we connect this whole ecosystem with Popsicle Finance. Popsicle Finance is a multi-chain yield optimization platform for liquidity providers. Turn on our autopilot, relax, and boost your yield. Again, this is a big trend of everything that Andre Cronje touches, is the ability to increase yield passively and automatically. And this is what Popsicle Finance is promising. Again, this is from the roots of an ecosystem that was built off of YFI, right? Its founder created YFI, Andre Cronje. Not that Andre Cronje created Popsicle Finance, but Andre Cronje is behind the Fantom ecosystem, which Popsicle Finance is on. As Daniel, of course, the chief architect here, Daniel, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, Popsicle Finance PLP's new design allowed them to be used as collateral across the Abracadabra ecosystem, including Limone on Fantom, Avalanche, as well as Uniswap v3 vaults on Arbitrum. Oh yeah, we are relaunching with Arbitrum support from day one. Again, so now you see here that this is part of the interlinking here of the ecosystem. Let's explain. Now, finally, we get to a pretty degenerate aspect of this. Some have called this project a scam. Some have called this project other less than savory words. And I just want you to understand that it's an anonymous project, not backed by Daniel, not backed by the Abracadabra ecosystem, but it is backed and it is using and leveraging the MIM token. So it is an opportunity for MIM holders to leverage their holdings to earn something called time. Now, this is a sort of fork of the Ohm ecosystem, but Ohm has this insanely passionate community called the Ohmies. Time is, for lack of a better word, just a little bit of a copy, and until proven otherwise, is an extreme high risk play that should be considered the extreme far right bell curve of risk here. Consider any money you put in here absolutely gone and be happy if it comes back to you. That's the type of approach here. Now, Wonderland is the first decentralized reserve currency protocol available on the Avalanche network based on the time token. Each time token is backed by a basket of assets, e.g. MIM, time, AVAX, LP tokens, etc., etc. in the Wonderland currency treasury, giving it intrinsic value that it cannot fall below. Wonderland also introduces economic and game theoretic dynamics into the market through staking and bonding. In the long term, we believe that stability and consistency so that time can function as a global of account, blah, 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 blah. Look, this is just an interesting concept here. And the only reason why it's interesting to me, and again, I'm not putting a lot of stock into this because it's a lot of buzzwords, but the reason why it's kind of interesting is that this really parodies kind of what Brian Armstrong was saying here with MIM and time about baskets of assets backing currencies to provide intrinsic value. Again, this is more of a concept of how we achieve a timeless flat rate object that does not move with inflation or asset appreciation, that essentially something like $1 that I know that if I buy a house for $1, that unless there's a rush on that neighborhood, that the house is not naturally just going to increase in value against that dollar. Essentially a stable asset that is not actually fiat currency, which gets printed like crazy, but it's backed by a bunch of consumer goods like houses, like medical care, internet, those types of things. So to summarize here, I think Squirrel of Valhalla puts this pretty interestingly. Initially, we launched MIM as a utility to leverage up on IB tokens, interest-bearing tokens, and to eventually use leverage LP on Popsicle Finance. Now we see a vision that's much bigger than that from this utility. will become a de facto decentralized basket stablecoin. MIM is currently seeing a steady growth with TVL currently at around $500 million with an average LTV of 75%, meaning that essentially this would have to fall down to 25% or less of its value to start liquidating the holders who have borrowed to get this MIM token against their underlying basket of currencies. With collateral value coming from 11 different assets across 4 different chains, L1 and L2. Considering that more and more activity is happening on different chains, having a stablecoin that is backed on very various chains distributes chain risk, which we've seen yesterday is clearly important. A stablecoin that is available and easily transferable across all chains is extremely powerful. Slowly but surely, the dark horse stablecoin MIM will be held in wallets just like any other stablecoin. Now, what I think is really interesting here is the concept of we're seeing the SEC start to go after the possible USDC stablecoin. We're seeing the need for potentially non-collateralized stablecoins, as that might actually come under the regulator's purview. But we need decentralized, stabilized assets, and wouldn't it be interesting if we had stablecoins that were actually backed by yield-bearing assets, and those yield-bearing assets kept the stable value actually at a value that accrued over time. So it wasn't just stabilized at a certain fixed rate, but it was stabilized by yield-bearing assets. That's a really, really interesting concept here. Again, this is super experimental, but we can see that this is approaching the concepts here outlined by Brian Armstrong. And all I want you to know is that it does seem that there is a little bit of magic going on here with all of the development, the liquidity, and the actual innovation happening around Abracadabra money and the MIM token. Magic internet money, spell, abracadabra. Yep, it's a lot to take in. Cross-chain liquidity, bridges. Yep, it's a lot. It's a lot, I know. But understand that although this world is pretty high risk, learning to understand the innovations going on here will not only make you smarter and better prepared to handle crypto in general, better understanding of the actual world that is being cultivated here in DeFi land, but it could very well get you in early into the next YFI, the next titan of DeFi. Again, this is extreme high risk here. In fact, there have been plenty of hacks, including Popsicle Finance itself was hacked in its early days. They were able to essentially recover funds and repatriate funds to their users. But the point is, this stuff is high risk. There's protocol risk. There's risk on a lot of sides here. But the reason why I bring this up is that these nascent cross-chain ecosystems between Fantom and Avalanche and L2 Ethereum, with new types of stablecoins that approach the kinds of ideals that are being outlined by thought leaders like Brian Armstrong, essentially outside the regulator's purview, like that of the SEC, as they might be going after USDC. These are the types of huge 100x hacks that could completely evolve DeFi, could completely evolve the crypto ecosystem as we know it. And for that reason, they should absolutely be experiments that are on your radar. Now, am I saying to go buy any of these? Absolutely not. I want you guys just to learn about this stuff and understand what's going on. The more technical you become, the less scared of peeling back the layers and looking at how protocols, liquidity, and different types of yield opportunities exist in DeFi, the more that you too can become a big brain, be early to these ecosystems, and be the recipient of much pumpage and much honor. Now, I do believe that this is still very nascent, but I am a strong believer in the Avalanche ecosystem, in the Fantom ecosystems, and of course L2 on Ethereum. So of course, I'm going to be excited when all of those things are being linked together, and then throw in a little AnySwap bridge, and I'm a happy camper. At any rate, I hope you guys learned from this. If you got some value out of it, smash that like button. It really helps the channel. As always, if you want the absolute earliest tip-offs on the most valuable ecosystems in the entire crypto space, then all you have to do is subscribe and put that bell notification on, because we're coming out with not one, but multiple videos each and every day, helping you get ahead and stay ahead of this market. You're definitely not going to want to miss a single episode, as it could be the difference between getting into Joe, getting into AVAX, getting into some of these projects super duper early. We covered Fantom at 3 cents back in 2020. So if you were there for that, you'd be up 50, 60x by now. All you have to do is be subscribed and be following the channel, and you'll be 2 steps ahead looking around the corners with me. With that said, I thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Elio Trades. You can find me on Twitter at Elio Trades. The link is in the description. Make sure you're subscribed and following over there as well. You don't want to miss a clue, trust me. And I'll see you very soon on the next episode.